What happens when two of Hollywood's biggest stars, each with opposite beliefs, sit down for what should be a friendly chat, but end up creating one of the most talked-about moments on live TV? From the very start, the air feels charged. What begins as small talk quickly turns into something far deeper. Before we get into it, don't forget to subscribe and share what you think about this unexpected clash. Tim Allen walks onto the stage with his trademark confidence, smiling as the crowd applauds. Jimmy Kimmel greets him warmly. "Tim, great to have you back. You've been part of Hollywood for decades. How do you see it now?" Tim chuckles. "It's a different world, Jimmy. Some good changes, but not all of them." The tone shifts instantly. Kimmel tilts his head. "What kind of changes are you talking about?" "Fear," Tim says. "People are afraid to say things, afraid to joke, afraid to be honest." "Everyone's walking on eggshells." Kimmel laughs awkwardly. "I'd call it being considerate." "Times have changed." "Considerate or controlled?" Tim replies. "Because it's starting to feel more like the second one." The crowd reacts with nervous laughter. "Come on, Tim," Kimmel says. "It's not control. People are just more aware of how words affect others." "There's a difference between awareness and censorship," Tim says calmly. "And right now we've crossed that line." Kimmel leans forward. "Don't you think people with big platforms have a duty to be careful?" "Sure," Tim nods. "But being careful shouldn't mean being silent. Real art and real comedy push limits. That's how people learn." "But sometimes pushing limits hurts people," Kimmel says. "Isn't that worth thinking about?" "Always," Tim says. But now the line keeps moving. "You can lose everything over one sentence. That's not progress, that's fear." "People just face consequences," Kimmel insists. "That's always been part of speaking out." "Consequences for actions, yes," Tim replies. "But now it's for opinions. Even old jokes. People are punished not for what they do, but for what they think." The audience goes quiet. "You're acting like this is new," Kimmel says. "It's just accountability." "No," Tim says firmly. "It's control disguised as virtue. And the scariest part is how normal it's become." "So what's your solution?" Kimmel asks. "Say whatever you want and ignore the fallout?" "I'm saying we should be allowed to talk," Tim says. "To disagree without one side being destroyed. Adults should be able to handle uncomfortable words." "That's easy for you to say," Kimmel snaps. "You've never been the target of those words." "You think that makes your view more valid?" Tim asks. "Pain isn't owned by one group. Everyone gets hurt. The difference is, some use it to listen, and others use it to silence." "You make it sound like you're the victim," Kimmel says. "You've done fine." "It's not about me," Tim says. "It's about what's happening around us. Writers scared to write, comedians scared to tell jokes, actors afraid to speak. That's not healthy." "Maybe that's just people learning to be kind," Kimmel argues. "No," Tim says. "That's people being scared to be human." "So you think being unfiltered is better than being thoughtful?" Kimmel asks. "I think pretending to be perfect is worse than admitting we're flawed," Tim answers. "Comedy, storytelling, they've always been about flaws." "But don't you see?" Kimmel says. "People finally feel heard. The ones who were ignored before." "And I agree with that," Tim says. "But if hearing new voices means silencing others, that's not equality. It's revenge." The audience murmurs. "You're exaggerating," Kimmel says. "No," Tim replies. "I'm describing reality. You can mock some beliefs all day long, but question others and your career's over." "That's called punching up," Kimmel says. "Joking about power, not the powerless." "Who decides who's powerless?" Tim asks. "Everyone claims to be the victim now. Power hides behind victimhood." Kimmel frowns. "So what do you want? Less sensitivity?" "No," Tim says. "Just balance. Let people talk without instantly branding them as villains." "That sounds like you just don't like consequences," Kimmel says. "No," Tim replies. "I don't like mob judgment. It replaces conversation with outrage." "Maybe outrage is how people finally get attention," Kimmel says. "Maybe," Tim admits. "But outrage without reflection is noise. We're drowning in noise." "You sound nostalgic," Kimmel says softly. "Like you want the old days back." "Not at all," Tim says. "I just want honesty back. when people could disagree without destroying each other. It's easy to say that when you're not the one being joked about, Kimmel says. You're assuming a lot, Tim says. You don't know who's been through what. You just decide whose pain counts. I'm saying empathy matters, Kimmel insists. And I'm saying empathy goes both ways, Tim replies. We can't demand understanding while refusing to give it. So where's the line, Tim? Kimmel asks. When is a joke too far? That's the point, Tim says. It's different for everyone. And instead of talking it out, we just cancel people. We stopped learning. Words cause harm, Kimmel says. And silence causes decay, Tim answers. One kills conversation. The other kills truth, Kimmel sighs. You really think people are afraid to speak? Absolutely, Tim says. Even you are. You pick your words like they're landmines. Kimmel smiles uneasily. I just try not to be a jerk. And that's fine, Tim says. But being kind doesn't mean avoiding truth. It means telling it with respect. You're describing something ideal, Kimmel says. It doesn't work that way in real life. Then maybe that's the problem, Tim says. We stopped trying. The room is tense but silent. You realize, Kimmel says, this whole conversation will be called controversial. Exactly, Tim says. Two people talking is controversial now. That says everything. Kimmel sits back, his tone softening. Maybe you're right. Maybe we've forgotten how to just talk. That's all I'm saying, Tim says. We don't have to agree, but we should be able to speak without fear. The audience applauds, unsure if they just watched a debate or a wake-up call. Two men, two views, and one moment that showed just how divided, yet connected, Hollywood still is.